So I'm Benedikt Gaertner. I moved to London around 4 years ago to do my postgraduate. And I'm currently an account executive here at Gaertner in the technology and service provider sales side.
Great. And could you tell us a little bit about your current job and the role that you're doing in your current company?
Yes, of course. So as I mentioned, I'm an account executive manager, but I started on the sales engineering side 2 years ago. Gaertner actually reached out to me via LinkedIn when I was at my old company, saying that they want to set up the sales engineering side. So that was kind of my responsibility, growing the team, mentoring the people, trying to build like a sales process and model for them. And then beginning of the year, I actually joined the sales team directly as an account executive. And I'm responsible basically for two sides of the business. So on one side, I work with my accounts, making sure they get the service that they need to work on their challenges together, and basically do all the immediate actions for them. But on the other side, I'm also responsible for finding new business, meaning prospecting, reaching out to people, having the initial conversations with them. So basically bringing them through a sales cycle to elaborate if there's room for potential partnership.
Amazing, thank you. And I know you just touched on this briefly, but what is work like day to day? More kind of, are you in the office, working from home? What are your main responsibilities and actions?
Yeah, very good question. So Gaertner has like a hybrid working model. So it means we can basically work from wherever we want within the UK. That we are like supposed to come in once per week. So my team does that on a Wednesday. It's just easier to get together in person and have conversations on the floor. You can review your deals that you're working on, brainstorm together, and it's just a very nice atmosphere in the office. But if you wanted to, you can, of course, work from home. You can even go abroad if you got the approval from your manager. So personally, for example, I go to Barcelona next week. I work from there, from our office. So it's very like a very open culture that we have here. And then in a little bit more detail on what I actually do on a day-to-day basis is you can roughly split my day in two sides. On one side, I work most of the time with my clients. I have bi-weekly meetings with them to understand if their challenges have changed, for example, or if there are any immediate actions that they need to take, if they're not happy with the service. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen, but sometimes you just have to have these conversations. And then on the other side, like I mentioned, I'm spending my time on LinkedIn, reaching out to people, call them, to get them booked into kind of like a sales cycle to elaborate, is there room for potential strategic partnership between Gaertner and their tech space, given the trend that we see in the market. And then lastly, we also, of course, have team meetings. Usually it's one meeting per day, and that is not just checking in if we work and do the things that we're supposed to do. It's also like upskilling ourselves, going through scenarios that are a little bit more tricky, so we understand how we can basically change our approach in future conversations. So it's a lot of like hands-on support that we get here as well.
Great. Sounds like a really great place to work. Could you talk a little bit about how you got the job and your application process?
Yes, of course. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, I actually got reached out to via LinkedIn. They were looking for a German speaker with a sales background. So I didn't go through the webpage, even though you can always find it on the company's webpage, the open positions, but they were very targeted. So they reached out via LinkedIn, and then within 1.5 weeks, we actually signed the contract, and I left my old company. It was a very easy, smooth process, most likely also because I moved here 4 years ago, which was before the Brexit, so I don't need a specific visa. I have the pre-settlement scheme, which of course helps you and is very beneficial. So yeah, that's basically how the application process went. Very smooth, very easygoing. I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Did you access any Queen Mary Career Services while you're at uni, and did it help in your application process in any way?
Yeah, yeah, that was more for my first job. So I was working for an ex network before on the capital market side, and I was actually quite heavily using the career service that Gaertner, that Queen Mary offers, basically to get myself prepared, have my CV reviewed, and that's how I found that organization actually. So it's through the tools that Queen Mary basically gave me, where you have job offerings that are not publicly in the internet yet, and you can apply to them before other people, and that basically helped me get the job.
Brilliant. It's great to hear a success story from our services. What do you enjoy most about your job?
That's probably the culture. So we have a very young team, very driven team. They know what they want to do in the future. Doesn't matter if that is staying in a large organization, in a global organization like Gartner, or if that's founding their own business. So you have that kind of vibe on the floor, which I really, really like. It's very supportive. So whenever you have any questions, you want some support, some help, it's very like, yeah, like team driven, the culture that we experience here, which is something that I haven't experienced in the sales organization before. So I'm very pleased about that, and kind of helps me to grow in the future as well and grow quicker, learn quicker. So I would say overall, it's definitely the culture.
Great. And do you have any tips for current international students going through the job application process in the UK? And maybe if you could just talk a little bit about your experience as an international student as well.
I would definitely say use the resource and the networking opportunities that Queen Mary provides. I know there are some networking events where you have guest speakers. So I was one of them previously. You have the opportunity to network there. You can reach out to your fellow students on LinkedIn, or previous students, see kind of what they do. If they work in an organization that you want to apply for, reach out to them. Usually they are all very happy to connect, give you some thoughts. And then, of course, practice and role play the interviews definitely helps to be prepared for those types of conversations. And just speaking out loud gives you kind of a different understanding on how you may sound to the other person who's interviewing you.
Great, that's great advice. Thank you. Just for our last question, yeah, could you just talk a little bit about how you found your experience as an international student at Queen Mary, and then, yeah, kind of like using that going into the job process?
Yeah, of course. So I studied for my postgraduate wealth management, and I was moving to London from 2020 to 2021. So that's basically the period when I was here. That was unfortunately the peak COVID time. But luckily, the way Queen Mary managed everything around it, I was able to have actually most of my lectures on campus in person, which was very nice. I would always recommend joining something like a society. So I was part of the rowing club. It's always good to mingle there, have the social events, and it's actually where I got most of my friends from today. We're still in very good contact. It's a great networking place. And besides, you always do a little bit of sport and fun. So that's definitely a great place. And then quite naturally, because you share the same interests, you are in an environment that is very driven, and kind of knows what they want to do and want to achieve. It like leads you automatically to go the right path. And that for me was going then into sales.
Amazing, thank you. It's really good to hear about your experience at Queen Mary.